Rahim. Inshallah, we will be continuing our discussion today. But I just need a moment to find the text. Okay, so we had read the fifth droplet last week. And these droplets in general, we've been looking at the prophethood of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and how that brings us closer to becoming acquainted with our sustainer, coming to know him, and so on. And I'll ask if others want to summarize it, but in the fifth droplet especially, there had been this emphasis on the human being's right neediness. There's this whole discussion, debate on, is the human being more needy than animals or not, right? But for me, at least from last week, the key sentence phrasing here was that the human being's intelligence, right, is a specific instrument for conveying grief, sorrow, unless it receives the divine message that allows one to see things as meaningful, as purposeful, not as results of chance or randomness. But I will offer others to also give their thoughts on anything that remained with them from last week or previous droplets as well from previous weeks. But anything someone wants to share from last week's discussion, because I'm sure there was a lot more talked about than what I just mentioned, especially those that were here in person. Do you have anything to share when you were moderating last week?
I covered it.
Okay. All right. Seeing as no one else is making eye contact, okay, we have one volunteer. I don't want to throw it.
So you already covered this, but just maybe give another voice to the same thing. In previous weeks, from the beginning, we started studying the prophethood from a different angle. This time we are looking at as the qualities or indications, signs that somebody would have to show that he is a prophet. And we said we could also read this as the indication signs that I'm looking for. We talked about his character, we talked about the message he brought and so on. And we put a lot of emphasis on how the message he brought was the message was addressed to the entire humanity, to change the life of entire humanity, rather than being a very specific niche message to a certain group who call themselves as Muslims, but it was for the entire humanity, which means today, when we also talk about what we believe, we should be able to convey it to any person we talk, right? Otherwise, it means we're not talking about the same message that he brought. If we are talking about the message that the prophet brought, then it should be conveyed to anyone easily. And we also talked about how this message transformed everybody's life, gave meaning to life. And last week we said this meaning giving is not just a poetic way of saying that, oh, my life is brighter now, or my life is more enjoyable now. But rather, we said, without revelation, without a figure like a prophet in your life, your life literally does not mean anything. It could be this way, that way, doesn't matter. There's no reference point. There's no the inherent checkpoint that you can say that, okay, this is good, this is not good. Other than I like it, I don't like it. Or as a group of people, we like it, we don't like it. Other than that, there's nothing in your life that is concrete, that is solid, that you can hold. And we see it nowadays, especially with these new trends, questioning everything, questioning every meaning in everything. And I was saying, I think what they are doing is true, right? Because within the context of no revelation, everything is really literally just a language game. That's what happens to life when you take away the revelation. So we studied that, and also we said the prophet as a figure represent a living tree, and its practical meaning is in your life, in your own time, when you need guidance, you should be able to find some people, like a real actual people. And to the extent, so I highlight this to the extent part, because nobody is by himself, by herself, by alone, is a perfect link to prophet, right? So to the extent their teaching, their lifestyles connected to the prophet's teachings, you should be able to get the guidance from those and use them as the role model for yourself.
Jazakumullah khair. Any other comments, thoughts, observations? If not, I will ask for a volunteer to read the 6th droplet. It's very short. Maybe someone from the sister's side could volunteer, yeah? Please. Where's the other mic?
Just because you said it's short, we could also read 6 and 7 together.
I think let's read it one by one, inshallah. Though I appreciate the insistent suggestion every week to do that.
Thus, that being brings and announces the good news of eternal happiness. He is the discoverer and proclaimer of an infinite mercy, the herald and observer of the beauties of the sovereignty of dominicality, and the discloser and displayer of the treasures of the divine names. If you regard him in that way, that is, in regard to his being and a worshipful servant of God, you will see him to be the model of love, the exemplar of mercy, the glory of mankind, and the most luminous fruit of the tree of creation. While if you look in this way, that is, in regard to his messengership, you see him to be the proof of God, the lamp of truth, the sun of guidance, and the means to happiness. And look, his light has lighted up from the east to west like dazzling lightning, and half the earth and a fifth of mankind has accepted the gift of his guidance and preserved it like life itself. So how is it that our evil commanding souls and Satan's do not accept with all its degrees the basis of all such a being claimed, that is, there is no God but God?
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you for that beautiful reading. Any part that, stood out to you, a sentence, a phrase, a word, and not just Natalia, not to put her on the spot, but anyone else as well. I mean, I'll give everyone a moment to kind of try to absorb it, but anything in particular that you might want to think about together further or try to understand or it doesn't make sense. Okay, yeah. Wait, let's keep the mic over there and then let's bring this.
So I believe it's in the middle somewhere when he talks about Imam Nursi talks about how in regard to his messengership, you see him to be the proof of God. The I see the lamp of truth, the sun of guidance, and like even like the means to happiness. But uh, can we explore more how he is the proof of God? Like how does like yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So how do we understand the prophet, right, as a proof of God? Uh, yeah, Zareen, please go ahead. Could we get the mic to her? Thank you.
I guess I just wanted to express a bit of a confusion, maybe as to the distinctions between the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam being a worshipful servant of God, like regarding his being a worshipful servant of God versus regarding his messengership, and like why these particular qualities are associated with each with each regard. um so I guess I was just like wanting to maybe further expand upon that, like for example, proof of God was just mentioned in regards to the messengership, but why not in regards to the worshipful servant, in regards to him being a worshipful servant of God? So I just wanted to maybe expand upon those descriptions.
So is the question, why is his being a worshipful servant of God being linked to also
Yeah.
being a model of love, exemplar of mercy, glory of mankind, and most luminous fruit of the tree of creation? Because those four things specifically are listed in terms of his ubudiyah, right? His servant worshiphoodness, let's say, worshipfulness. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so any thoughts on those two questions? Understanding Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as proof of God, and also how do we understand the relationship between him being a worshiper of God, or worshipful servant as the text says, with these other specific qualities, right? Like being a model of love or example of mercy. Or any other questions you want to add on to these two?
I just have like question like related to this. I don't know, but why is there a difference between like this explanation of the prophet peace be upon him, and then the other one is like, while if you look at this way, that is in regard to messengership. So I was under the impression like everything comes under the umbrella of messengership. So why is like the author making a stark difference of uh all of those things before and then like separating the messengership qualities after that? If someone could answer that.
So the difference makes me feel of like one is being a worshiper and a servant, which we can be as well, I feel like. So the adjectives, or the way that it's explaining, it's like the exemplar of mercy. That's something that can be seen through Muslims as worshippers, right? But then in regard to his messengership, it's like it's like we see, or the way I feel, it's like we see God through him, like a lamp. A lamp is, it holds a light, right? Like a lamp doesn't have a light. A lamp is where we put the light, or like the sun. The sun is not itself, the sun is just light. Yeah, the sun is just like where the light is. So I feel like in his messengership we see God, therefore like the proof of God. But in just like as a servant, we see the qualities of God through a servant. I don't know if that made sense.
Jazakallah khair. And that was in response specifically to Zareen's question, right? Let's.
So looks like the sixth point or sixth droplet is like having like two pieces. The first one is he made for general statements. Then he said, since these are the case, then if you look with the first lens or the second lens, like three pieces. So he made four statements at the beginning. And then he said, since this is the case, if you regard him in that way, that is through his servanthood, and then if you look at him the other way, which is his messengerhood. So servanthood, messengerhood is an important, I don't know if separation, but two different perspectives. The first one, abduhu wa rasuluhu. And as we were studying 18th word right before here, we were talking about two spheres, like sphere of rububiyyah, sphere of ubudiyah, and how, as he was making a point about his messengerhood, the point for talking about messengerhood started by saying ubudiyah, he is the best among the worshippers. So this is an important point to keep in mind. Since he was best among the worshippers, he was presented to the rest of the people as an exemplary, hence became the messenger. So this relationship is very important to keep in mind. But before getting there, he is going to make us look from these two different perspectives after talking about the first four statements. So he is talking about he brings and announces the good news of eternal happiness. So, I mean, since we are born into, I mean, most of us born into Muslim culture, like eternal happiness is already in the atmosphere. Like the idea is there. We have heard about it. So this is why maybe it doesn't sound like, oh, this is something new to us. Maybe we know what we talk about, maybe we don't. But let's pay attention with the idea of eternal happiness. What would the life look like without this idea of eternal happiness? And not only as an abstract idea, but bringing it with convincing arguments, saying that there will exist an eternal happiness for you. This totally changes the meaning of life, purpose of life. So to the extent that I can appreciate eternal happiness, then I will appreciate the messenger. So this is something to think about. And then discoverer and proclaimer of an infinite mercy. Is there infinite mercy in this existence? He is discoverer and proclaimer. He's not simply just saying something that he himself did not discover. That's also important. Like I can, actually today I was giving an example at Drexel saying that I took Ahmed's iPhone and said that I produced this. Can you claim that I don't? They said, well, your phone is Google Pixel. If you were the inventor of iPhone, you would have been using iPhone. So Prophet is not declaring a message which he himself didn't confirm. What that means, we can talk about this or think about this. And then herald and observer of the beauties of the sovereignty of dominicality. But I would like to emphasize the fourth one, since it sounded a little interesting to me more than the others. Discloser and displayer of the treasuries of divine names. So mentioning divine names as a treasure, and now the messenger is displaying and disclosing those divine names. So What does divine name mean in my world, and why is it a treasure? So if it's a treasure, the treasure has this notion of being hidden. So prophet is telling me something that's hidden, figuring it out for himself and sharing it with me. Something to think about. So if I say, I mean, since let's go with the most common divine name that Quran is mentioning, Rahman and Rahim, let's say. So what does it mean that prophet is talking about Rahim? In my world, when I look at things, do I see mercy in there? This prophet is attracting my attention to mercy. So those divine names are like summaries, like signatures, if you like. And a signature, like in an artwork, a signature means that's a style. Like this artist's style is in here. If you see, I don't know, Monet's signature somewhere, you say, oh, this is his style. So Rahim is a signature. So do you see the signature of Rahim in sunrise? Do you see the signature of Rahim in sunset? Do you see the signature of Rahim in a newborn baby and also a dying person? So seeing mercy everywhere, but as the signatures of Rahim is everywhere. Because act is the same. Like a bird is cleaning its wing. Your eyelids are cleaning your eyes. And wind is cleaning the streets. And all of them are saying Al-Quddus. They are reading all the same name. And then the Prophet on top of this says, An-nadhafatu min al-iman, cleanliness is part of iman. So then you see that, oh, this name is manifest everywhere actually. So teaching us divine names, otherwise the treasure is right in front of our eyes, which is the universe. But it is hidden because it's so obvious. So Prophet is attracting our attention with the message he brought, attracting our attention to those treasuries of divine names.
And so Brother Yusuf kind of brought our attention back to the first paragraph, right? Of how to understand those and whether we can also confirm infinite mercy. How do we understand the treasures of the divine names? So more questions to think about, but any answers to some of the existing questions?
I'm giving it to you. Oh, okay. He's giving it. Is that good? So we always hear this prophet being Abduhu wa Rasuluhu. But at least to me, until I started, studying this text, I never thought about it. That both of them are always there, Abduhu wa Rasuluhu. I mean, it would be enough just to say Rasul. I mean, he's a prophet, right? Why there's an emphasis also, he's being Abd as well. As if we have this hierarchy categorization in our minds that Qadir, Ahmed, and Birkan are Abd, but Muhammad, والسلام, he's Rasul, right? And then there are, depending on your, let's say, the school of thought and so on, there might be some saints, Evliya, the scholars, and so on in between. But for us, the Abd is just us, like the regular people. And there's no a real connection between us and the Prophet. So we even say things like, when you give an example of, let's say, a Prophet, so let's make it about a family. It will be a heated discussion maybe. Let's assume you are giving an example that, oh, Muhammad, Sian, and don't you see the example of Nuh alayhi salam. Even though his wife doing this or that, he was so patient with that. You should put this way as well. Like you give this example from Quran. And the Sial telling me, which is so common, oh, come on, Birkan, he's a prophet. Right? It means it's not reachable. It's not something that about me. It's a prophet. It's just a role model that you would never imitate, never, be able to reach at this point of patience, for instance. So with this emphasis on abduhu, I guess, abd being abd, giving us the link. Yes, he was selected as a Rasul, a prophet, but this is almost like the cream of the cake, like the end part. His journey didn't start from his being Rasul. The journey started with his being an abd. Before he was a Rasul, the prophet, he was abd. And with his abdness, he was, let's say, appointed as a prophet, as a Rasul. So when we think it that way, now we can make connection, right? We can say that in their lives, they were not just prophets. They were not like unreachable, the out of human experiences. They were just human like you. They were abd in their daily life. So when they look at their lives, you can take them as a role model. As the author says, you will see him to be the model of love, the model of mercy, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the one reason the emphasis on his being abd always there. And the text is also interesting. He describes his being abd, the worshipper. How? He does not say he was praying all the time, he was making zikr all the time, he was not sleeping at night, reading Quran, praying, whatever. Like everything that he did, these are not lies. But the emphasis is not here, like here is not that, with his being a worshipper abd, but rather he's bringing, or let's say, seeing the eternal happiness and announcing to other people, discovering the infinite mercy in the creation, seeing, observing, and being an herald of the beauties of the divine names, discloser and displayer of the treasuries of the divine names. He's defining being an abd, the worshipper, this way. So then, again, taking it to myself, how am I going to imitate the abdness of the prophet, the worshipper of the prophet? Then when I look at the creation, when I look at my life, I see beauties of the divine names. I see treasures everywhere, mercy, the eternal happiness, and so on and so forth. To the extent I see them, I become a true worshipper. Why? Because if you don't see a providence, like somebody providing something, you don't see a beauty, you cannot appreciate this beauty. If you don't see it, you cannot appreciate it. When you say my creator is merciful, although you don't see any mercy in life, you're not saying something true to yourself. Like you're just repeating a word that you memorized, and that's all. You're not worshiping anyone. You can worship someone only when you see a quality that deserves to be worshipped. You see mercy and you worship the merciful one. You see beauty and you worship the beautiful one. That's how he was a worshiper.
Just wanted to ask, I mean, can somebody ask the best example for mankind and the proof of God coming at the end of the chain of prophethood, which means everyone before him kind of missed out on that example. And what if somebody who's reading the Quran decides to, instead of taking Prophet ﷺ as an example, decides to take somebody, a different prophet as an example? He wants to live by that example because maybe he can relate to that prophet more. Why would that be a problem?
You had about 2 seconds to decide if you were going to reply or not because the mic was getting passed back. But so the question, if I understood it correctly, was almost two-tiered, right? In that one, if we are in such need of a living example of all these qualities in one person, right, as exemplified through the Prophet ﷺ, did everyone before him miss out on that? And also, like how, what if others just decide to follow a different prophet? That was the question, right? Okay. One thing that I wanted to just go back to the earlier question that was asked, because I was still thinking about it, of how do we see the messenger as proof of God, right? And I guess one way that we can think about it is that, when I observe Maryam here, right, and I interact with her, or both Maryams, when I interact with them, I experience love and compassion, right, and kindness and generosity. And through the experience of those qualities, I say, oh, there must be a one that is the source of those qualities, because sometimes they manifest them and then sometimes perhaps they don't. So I say there must be a source from which this is coming from. And so the prophet, in being the one who is exemplifying, as it says, the exemplar of mercy, or being the best example of mercy and compassion and love and all these other different qualities, that as human beings we are given the potential to manifest, then that also tells me, oh, there must be an absolute source of these qualities. So that's how I was thinking of one way in which we can think of Rasulullah ﷺ as a proof, as a sort of signpost to God through all his qualities. Before I give the mic back to this side, I wanted to just take a look, see if any of our brown hijabi sisters want to make comments or share reflection. If not, they get called out as being not receptive to prophetic messages. All right, okay. Well, they have the mic, I think, somewhere here. So should they want to, they can. Inshallah, we can continue with Brother Yusuf and then.
So, going back to how is he the proof of God? So, since at the beginning, again, the author was talking about those four statements, and for each of those four statements, he used discoverer and proclaimer, observer and herald. Like one of them looks to him himself observing something, the other one looks to him proclaiming it to other people. Like, for example, discloser of the divine treasuries of divine names, and also displayer. So then his teacher aspect simply becomes a proof of God, because whatever he says is becoming a proof of the creator. Like what comes out of his mouth with his message is all pointing to the creator. So simply he is becoming a proof of God with all his acts and speech and everything, because if you say this person, you remember the creator. So in this sense, I guess he becomes proof of God by just like a walking exemplary person. Each and every aspect of him reminds you and makes you know of the Creator. But this aspect of like his first ubudiyah in his, like whatever comes out of his mouth being first experienced and what's it, put a stamp of confirmation. I know that this is the case, and then proclaims it to others, is also a good lesson to us. Like I might become a preacher of something that I do not experience. So how much am I convinced? How much do I believe in what I am saying? So him first being an abd and then being a rasul, to the extent that you are a perfect abd, because Imam Nursi has a dua which says, "Oh Allah, accept us as your abd." Like you want to be accepted as an abd. It looks like it's, I mean, being an abd looks like the lowest level, but it looks like it is the highest level achievable for a proper human being. And as much as I am starting to become like, what is the alternative to being an abd? Let's also ask that question. What else can a human be? A human can become a pharaoh. What's a pharaoh? I am your Rabbukum al-A'la. I am your high lord, he claims. Like in his own perception, Pharaoh thinks that he is their high lord of people. And I might be thinking as I am high lord of my family, or if I am running a research lab, let's say, I feel like I am the high lord of my PhD students because I get grant from the government. And if I don't write grants, then my PhD students are going to like not get money, and then they're not going to continue there. So these are very different types of not abd, in my understanding. Again, as a person, if I do not consider myself as an abd, what can I become? I become a pharaoh. But what does a pharaoh mean? A pharaoh becomes slave of many other things. In the case of Prophet ﷺ, recognizing his abdness to utmost level makes him observe these results. Then one can say, to the extent that I realize my abdness, I will realize eternal happiness. Because look at the people, upset people around you, and look at yourself to the extent that you're upset. Why am I upset? Most of the time I am upset because I am chasing things and I feel like I will achieve them. And once I achieve them, I'm going to become more. They will make me more. They will make me better. If I get this degree, if I get this next phase of life, I'm going to become more satisfied and whatnot. So I am distancing myself from being abd of my creator, but being a slave of things themselves, which is taking me away from eternal happiness because I chase happiness in the things themselves. This is why people are unhappy. This is why the society is unhappy, because we are chasing happiness in like a 1 minute TikTok video now. Like this is what we become. We are chasing those one minute TikTok videos. And what, the government is shutting it down? No. So I mean, in here, everything that he mentioned, announcing the good news of eternal happiness, discoverer and proclaimer of an infinite mercy, to the extent that you discover it, then you can proclaim it. So in this sense, realizing this in my life can make me appreciate Prophet as well. He doesn't speak anything that he himself did not confirm in the first place. Flip it to yourself. You can speak about anything as much as you are convinced about it. Otherwise, it's not going to be received as a meaningful message. And this might make a difference. Why Sahaba was different, we can also think about it here. Because their teacher, whatever he spoke, was something that he himself was 100% convinced about. This is why it was having, like they were sensing the surety, security in his environment, in his atmosphere, if you like. That's why they use the word of they were getting painted with the color of the Messenger, والسلام. Like they were sitting in the same room for 40 minutes, for 1 hour, and before and after was a huge difference. So I guess being convinced is an important part of messengerhood, is what I'm reading from here. Oh, regarding Fahim's question, an example came to my mind when you asked the question. Like we take it as if, so in the families, the parents, they got trained with every child, right? So every child is a opportunity to become better. Anyway, you realize that with the second child, for instance, the way you act is softer, let's say wiser, I mean, as if, and more, let's say, merciful. And then you ask the question, oh, then there's injustice here because I was not the same guy with the first one. The first one missed, these better qualities. So we take, I take your question in the same way. If the prophets are getting better or the last one is the best one, what about the previous people? Isn't kind of an injustice to them? Even with the families, what you realize, like to the extent you can contemplate, without tricking yourself and so on, just being honest, you realize every child receives what they need most. Every person is different, and every person has their own needs. And if everything going smooth, they all receive what they need most. Some of them requires more compassion. Some of them require more independence to be flourish. Some of them require more guidance, but some of them require more, mistakes to be corrected. So there's never injustice in terms of the creation itself. We human beings, as being a bad parent, for instance, I cause injustice. But from the qadar perspective, the bigger, the picture perspective, there is never injustice, even with the families. Now, look at the prophethood. Assuming every prophet was best in their own ways. So one thing you see, even with the humanity, you see a change in humanity. We see it even today, to some extent. The people are changing, their needs are changing. Some people require more emphasis on hereafter. Some people require more emphasis on what to eat, what not to eat. And we see that every prophet was sent to a different nation, and based on the requirements of that nation, the message was shaped. The same message from beginning to end, from Adam alayhi salam to Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, it's all the same message, but there are different emphasis on different parts. That's one thing I can see. Another thing, as Nursi mentioned at the very beginning, when he defines the prophethood of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, he defines it in on top of the prophethood of other prophets. He said it's like a living tree with the roots are going to the previous prophets, right? So when he says the best of humanity as an example, he's also talking about this prophethood as the idea. So you can apply it to, let's say, the prophet Salih alayhi salam as well. For his time, for his people, if there's a scholar talking about the Salih alayhi salam, he would say the Salih is the best example of humankind. A role model of love and so on. From their context, like from their perspective, in their time and so on. But as the humanity as also gets better and better in some senses, like the idea of kemalat, like being getting better, you can apply it to an individual. Ahmed is getting a better worshipper, but the humanity as a whole, or also, you may say that the capacity is getting larger and larger. So as far as I know, there is such a thing, the kemalat of the insan, the humanity, entire humanity, in Islamic literature. In that sense, the prophet, the last prophet, being the best of humanity. But again, from their perspective, from their within their context, in their time, for their needs, the Nuh alayhi salam would be the best for them. The Salih would be the best for them, and so on. For us, we see that this is the end where the deen is perfected. And when Quran says, I completed your deen, it's talking about, the message that Muhammad alayhi salam received, but also the entire message from Adam alayhi salam to Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. The whole message is also being completed. This is at least how I see it.
And Prophet ﷺ also mentions for Sahaba, all my Sahaba are like stars, whichever you follow, they lead you to truth. So, I mean, in terms of, as we know, Sahaba, they were all different personality types. Maybe one of them was too wise, the other one was like super just, the other one was super truthful. Like they were shining in a different aspect, which means if you are talking about perfectly balanced, perfect human, none of them were. Yet Prophet ﷺ says, whichever of my Sahaba you follow, they are going to lead you to guidance. So in this regard, like even following Sahaba is being presented to us by the Prophet ﷺ as finding the truth. So following other prophets as a teacher in this sense. And when I say following other prophet, I mean taking them as a guidance for finding the truth. Not in the sense of, I mean, we don't have this access anyways. Or was he eating this, drinking this? I'm not talking about the Sharia aspect of it. But if I'm going to go and look at Musa alayhi salam as he is being presented to me in Quran, there are things that I'm going to be following Musa alayhi salam. This is why he's being presented to me as an example in there. So like there's no categorical difference as somebody says, oh, I'm going to go with Musa alayhi salam. No, I'll go with Isa. I mean, practically this is not the case. So I guess you will benefit from any one of them or all of them at the same time. But as we see in Sahaba's time, like they were, although their teacher was the same, they manifested very different personalities. You can say, for example, Abu Zar was looking like Musa alayhi salam, like the way he was being this very stern, speaking the truth no matter what type of personality. So much so that he was cast out of his society, for example. So you say, well, this person is a little too harsh. But then you see Uthman alayhi salam, you say, Uthman radiallahu anh, then you say, oh, this looks like Ibrahim alayhi salam. He has this hilm in there. Like you can see it in this sense. Probably your question was not exactly like this, but I think there's this aspect of the question.
Since we had more voices, I was thinking we can keep this here and I can get that one, but that, I guess, the presence of it will continue to be an encouragement to share your comments. But one thing that I wanted to return to is Brother Yusuf highlighted this earlier, right? But that the description here of the prophet as the discoverer and proclaimer of an infinite mercy. And I was thinking that I think that word there, discover, is extremely important for us, right? Because it's not taken for granted that this quality in fact exists, but that it should be discovered. Like when I interact with my friend, when I interact with my family, when I interact with others, I should try to discover what divine qualities can there be manifested and reflected in this person, such that I can come to know my creator better, right? So I thought that was just an important phrase there that we can try to think and implement as well. Please go ahead, Brother Yusuf.
I mean, that is important. Today I saw a student. We had a conversation with this student a while ago, and I know that the student is going through some hard time, but that student was absent for some time. After 2-3 months, I saw that student. And then student was mentioning that hospitalized for 2 weeks. I cannot ask the details, of course, because of FERPO violations and whatnot. So it's a very weird world. Some violation about some law. And then mentioned that mental health issues, very bright student, but definitely going through a lot of trials and tribulations in life. And I feel like seeking the answer in a totally wrong place. And I felt the pain for what we are discussing right now, not being able to explain it to the student. Like the whole existence is mercy. In that student's world, life sucks so badly. And student used the term something like radical acceptance. I said, what does this mean? And the description the student gave, sorry for the language, but you are in very bad condition. Put some more bad word in there. And then rather than saying, why me, just accept it and try to find a way out of it. This is how the student formulated it. Like, it sucks, it's horrible, and I find myself here. So how do I get out of this position, rather than whining about it? So to say the student that, no, it's not bad. Actually, it's an invitation to you. It's a mercy that you are searching for answer in the wrong place. It's just somebody is knocking your door. Wake up. Like such a dark world I sense in the student, and totally there is no light in this student's world, and doesn't know where to look for the answer either. When you look at how the prophet is seeing everything as mercy, you see the stark difference between the two. And how much do I benefit from this? Then I question myself. Where am I in the spectrum? Maybe I am not totally in darkness as the student is currently in, but am I in pure mercy? Am I living in the pure mercy world? Just, I guess I need to consider the troubles that I'm going through, how much I am troubled by certain things, how much I'm not able to see the mercy hands being troubled by them. And then look at Prophet's life. How much would you be able to stand if you were in Mecca? Or how much, even think about it this way, how much Sahaba would be able to survive if Rasulullah SAW died in Mecca. Like when the message was not completed, they were definitely under a lot of pressure. If Prophet was taken away at this moment, what would have happened to the Sahaba either? Although they have very strong iman, but seeing Prophet right there, the message being shining in their face. So I can then ask my question to myself, come back and ask myself, where am I in the spectrum? Why do I ask such a question? So that I benefit, go back to this mercy, which he benefited for himself and then proclaimed about it. So let me see how much I can sense it. Then critically, I can question myself in this sense rather than using cliche words. Do I really see mercy?
I don't know. You will buy a new one. If it's not. Yeah. That reminded me the current the teachings in psychology, which is mostly based on the like you define things as pathological to the extent they prevent you to go to work, have family, and so on. Otherwise, there's nothing wrong with anything if you are able to continue working. And the qualities the qualities, like for instance, if they want to prevent things happening like decreasing the workforce, which is suicide, is the studying it from the lens of resilience and coping with. Like whatever it is there, you have to accept it anyway, just like your friend said. Everything must be like can be dark, who cares? If you have enough resilience, if you can cope with difficulties, then you survive. Otherwise, we have to invent other ways to make the work done. So that's, going back to tying back to previous week's discussion as well. Like when you take out the message of hereafter, eternal bliss, eternal happiness, the mercy from the life really literally become meaningless, literally become darkness. And only the people who can live in darkness can survive. And this is what they will teach you, what they will train you for.
During the conversation, I was so troubled today because, like, I would like to bring the topic to message, revelation, like, but the framework the student lives in is a totally materialist worldview in which you just need to chase happiness, and happiness being momentary happinesses because there's no eternal happiness, because there's no eternity. It will end anyways. So, and it's framed in a way that the clerics of this worldview are saying that no, you cannot think outside of the framework of our like teachings of our church, which is the university, like the science, saying that like God, what God are you talking about? It's just a made up story. And happiness, success is what you are after. Nothing much to be able to say, but seeing the stark difference, what the revelation is offering me, what the prophetic teaching is offering me, was a like big blessing to observe when I compare what the student is going through and what Prophet has offered me in this case. So, and as we will see in one of the upcoming sections as well, author will say that let's get out of this world, this century, and go back to the century of bliss, like to the time of Prophet with our imagination, and let's visit him. He is going to utilize our imagination so that we can see the true value of the message. Because sometimes we get used to it so much that you get used to comfortable house, comfortable family. So you start not enjoying the food, regular food that's being cooked. But if you go to some like hardship, some town in Africa or somewhere, then you realize, oh, what the life I was living in was so comfortable. Sometimes we are forgetting the value of what is offered to us with the messenger, so much so that we take it so normal if we are aware of what it is. So we might use our either observe what other people are going through or use our imagination to see what would have happened if I didn't know about a sustainer, because he is talking about herald and observer of the beauties of the sovereignty of dominicality, realizing rububiyya in this existence. Imagine yourself to be living in a world where everything is random. How would you feel? Contrast this to, no, you're living in a world where it's a perfectly ordered by a sustainer, by a provider. Nothing is random. So what is the distinction between the two? And prophetic message is bringing us the second one. So it's a so different, so stark of a difference, which makes human, proper human. So I would then say that if this message was not there, then those human beings without those messages are becoming really beasts, very wild beasts who are being just punched by everything in this existence.
Thank you for those comments. Any thoughts so far? Yeah, sorry.
I guess I was thinking about um sort of like the application to my life where I feel like, you know, coming to these discussions and hearing about prophethood in this sense, um, I think that it makes sense to me, alhamdulillah. And then I find that once I leave this sort of environment and maybe like go to my workplace, for example, it feels like, you know, what I thought I had confirmed for myself or on my own suddenly gets tested in the presence of others. So I guess I don't know like how to when we're in I feel like it's easier like if I'm on my own to reflect and like maybe like discover like go through this process of discovery, but then it feels like if I'm in the presence of like other like people or a different environment, suddenly it feels like I'm being like tested in a different sense where I kind of go back to a previous programming where everyone is talking about maybe different things, how life is so hard and they're going through, for example, a lot of my colleagues are preparing for the next step in their like academic career, and it's stressful and it's really hard, and like the only like light at the end of the tunnel is that, you know, once they like make it through, they'll be in this like new position, new like stage. And then for me, I feel like suddenly I'm being dragged back into that mindset. So maybe it's like a reflection on how convinced I actually what thought I well, I thought I was convinced, but then maybe that like going back into these different environments with different people kind of mirrors back to me that no, actually you still you still need more work. Um so I was kind of thinking of it like that, where it seems a lot harder than just coming to discussion and affirming these things in this like setting with like the people around me here. But then when I go into a different setting, I find, you know, everything I've like learned, or everything I've been like taught from like this society kind of comes back, and it's like it feels like this like competition where certain things I think I find myself more sensitive to, at least now, that I might have not seen before. But I guess like maybe that's part of the journey, is that like some things I just have to continue to like sensitize myself to. And I think I tend to like want to skip to the how do I proclaim this to others without like thinking about what it means for myself to actually confirm prophethood and the message myself. So I appreciated that like distinction, and I don't know, just wanted to highlight the different like kind of challenges in day-to-day life of affirming that, when I think intellectually maybe I understand it, but then I find myself lacking in my practical aspects.
Jazakallah khair. I think that's a very practical example. I mean, it's I think state of being all of us experience. I definitely experience, right? Like, how do we cultivate this awareness that is exemplified by the Prophet, this understanding of the divine message in such a way that it permeates into every aspect of our life, such that, you know, we can still sort of not lose that worldview when opposing worldviews are so normalized and so normally talked about, or even, you know, sometimes it's really put under pressure with those that are closest to you, right? You want to exemplify prophetic behavior, but it becomes especially difficult, let's say, with your parents or your siblings or, you know, your loved ones, where you revert to different factory settings, let's say. But I think part of it is I mean, I don't have any one solution except to say that, like, yeah, I think it's shared. But it also makes me think of, you know, when muscles are put under pressure, they grow. So it's through a utilization of them, I guess. And in fact, this constant, you know, this droplet ends with, like, why is it that my nafs still refuses to accept the truth really of la ilaha illallah, right? So I'm constantly in my life being given opportunities to confirm that, reconfirm that. Is that really the case? Is my source of fulfillment, maybe is it through these academic positions that, you know, I'm trying to strive for just as I am with my peers? Or is it through, you know, attaining the validations of my family members or what have you, right? But it comes in different forms and shapes, and I have to perhaps I'm constantly asked to reconfirm that message. So instead of seeing it as just being put under pressure or contested, it's also an opportunity for me to say, oh, in fact, yeah, this is why this message makes more sense to me. This one brings peace to my heart, and this one brings stress and despair into my heart. And that contrast allows me to uh refresh, renew, revitalize my conclusions and hold on to them more strongly, and try to implement them more as well, perhaps. But any other thoughts on that note? Yeah. Baseball here.
This is a little unrelated, but if we see or understand the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as the herald of God and the maybe the greatest proof of God, and his light spreads, do we have any role to play in, I don't know, guiding others to Islam, or is that role already given to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam?
So I guess it is. So like as much as like Abduhu wa Rasuluhu applies to every individual to the extent that we realize our abness and then whatever we can get in terms of being a messenger. Because when we were studying 18th word, it is probably one of my favorite words. But in there, when he was mentioning, he started with abness of the messenger. And then he said the creator would talk to such a recipient student, like speaking it in terms of a metaphor, like Prophet ﷺ being the best example of a human being and as an abd, he is the one who appreciates his creator the most and who understands and appreciates the artwork of the creator to the utmost degree. Then he made a statement saying that then the creator who wants his artwork to be seen, this is the purpose of existence of this universe, he would show this human being, exemplary human being, as a reference to others, as a teacher. So to the extent that you embody abness as you learned it from messenger, then you will feel the responsibility of becoming an example to others as well. I mean, you would like to anyways, because if I am hungry here and dying of hunger, and if you have $5 in your pocket, I hope you will give me that $5. Like, this is basic human mercy instilled in human being anyways. So if you see me suffering from darkness and you do have this mercy to the extent that you understand and embody it in your life, you would feel the pain of the need to share it with the person who is longing for it. So I guess this becomes another way to appreciate and understand and relate to the prophethood of prophets in general. And this is why he was mentioning it as a live tree. Like, although Prophet ﷺ was Khatamun Nabiyyin, but did the tree end in there in terms of delivering the message? Receiving the message, he was the end, so no new revelation is coming. But is the teacherhood ending there? Because people ask that question, saying that if there's any time that we need a messenger, it is this time more than any other time. I heard this question being asked. But in terms of a teacher, the message is there. The message that was delivered last time is still there, as relevant as it has ever been. So embodying is what is on your shoulders now. Otherwise, we are not in need of a new message to be revealed. This is why Prophet ﷺ has been the last of the messengers. But embodying of message is going to be under the shoulders of any believer. In between the lines, by the way, there's an interesting anecdote. I don't know what to make of it, but maybe I should just allude to it if you would like to make anything out of it. So to the end, he says, and look, his light has lighted up from east to west like dazzling lightning. This is an interesting word he's using in there. Why does he say dazzling lightning? In the original text, he uses the term belki khatif. This is a reference to verse 16 in Surah Baqarah. In Surah Baqarah, when talking about munafiqun, gives a metaphor saying that, and their metaphor resembles of that happens they're in darkness. There's the depiction of a munafiq in darkness, and then a lightning happens, but the lightning is a lightning which takes away their eyesight. Like khataf means the snitcher comes and takes it away from you. Like it's so bright. But for the munafiqun, he says, in the darkness, they were just standing still. And then when the lightning happens, they start moving in a certain direction, slowly, not runningly, slowly. And when the light goes off, they stand still where they got stuck. That's an interesting metaphor being mentioned in there. But now Nursi using this, a verse about munafiqun, the hypocrites, in the context of when pointing to myself. That is the interesting part to me. Despite the fact that you heard the message of the messenger, are you just hearing it because this is how the lightning is? You can see the lightning. In its light, you take a few steps, then you are in darkness. But how can you benefit from, like, elongated benefit from the lightning? Not like an instant benefit and just it's there. And even in the verse, it's talking about meshi, like they slowly walk in that direction, not in a hurry either way. Because if you're in such a hard condition, you will try to escape somewhere. So when I see the light of the messenger, so it's such a bright, and it happened in such a darkness, how much enthusiastic am I to benefit from this? Like, for example, in a discussion, or somebody narrating something from the messenger, and you see a bright light of prophetic guidance. You get a little bit excited at this moment. What happens next? After the discussion, am I going back to my dark world? Or am I saying that, oh, this was a very bright light. Let me try to pursue this light and make more out of it. At the end, when he was, so how it is that our evil commanding souls and Satans do not accept with all its degrees the basis of all such a being claimed that is, there is no God but God. So within Muslim culture, we hear the prophetic guidance, either directly by his life or in such discussions where the message is being discussed. And we get a little bit excited, sometimes too much excited, the discussion gets heated and whatnot. What do I do afterwards? It feels like Imam Nursi in here is saying that check whether you are because in Surah Baqarah, beginning of Surah Baqarah talks about three types of personality. The first one is a believer, the second type is a denier, and the third type is a hypocrite. Where are you in the spectrum? Am I a munafiq? Am I a hypocrite? I think in between the lines, this questioning is being embedded in there. To the extent that I try to benefit from this message, not simply like a momentary lightning in my world, which so shiny takes away eyesight, but being excited about it, or I would like to follow this light. Because Quran mentions Rad, Barq quite a bit, like the lightning and the thunder. In one place, Imam Nursi says it's alluding to try to benefit from this. Like imagine this in the dark night, thunders were enlightening everywhere. Eventually, people really said that, can we produce this ourselves? Can we benefit from this? Can we store this energy? And now here we have those electricity here. Like eventually, we learned how to benefit from this lightning, not only during this short periods of lightning and rain, but in elongated periods. And right now we are benefiting from it in this dark night. How do I do this with prophetic lightning? like the light that comes from Prophet, so that I can continuously benefit from that.
Going back to what Sister Zarin said, so Yusuf gave a kind of a smacking answer to the question by making us question. Let's try maybe a compassionate answer to the same. But I agree with you, like what he said. I think totally fits to my case. In the ring case, maybe there might be another dimension, which is like one of my teachers, he would say, if you have iman, if you believe in the unseen and you confirm it, to the extent you have the iman, you will have tension in life. Because when you have the truth, when you want to leave this truth, and when you see the falsehood in life, you will feel this tension. If you don't feel this tension, that means you're just repeating some words again, right? Because the truth will give you also it will give you ease, it will give you eternal bliss and so on. But at the same time, every time you see the wrong doing, every time you see unjust, every time you see the darkness, you will feel sorry. You will feel, with no help. You don't know what to do. You don't know how you can save these people and so on. It will create a tension in you. It will give a tension to you. So I guess from that perspective, when you go to your workplace and you see that everything is different than what we discussed here, when you realize that, it means you are on the right path. You would be lost regardless of all these discussions and readings and whatever, when you don't see the difference. You read Quran, you study it, you go to your workplace, and you don't see any difference. You say, oh yeah, I studied the Quran. You sometimes narrate the stories from Quran as just the stories. Oh, in our culture we believe this, and then giggle a little bit. They tell you what they believe in their cultures, and you live in your diverse, happy world. That would be the problem. But every time you go there, you feel awkward, you feel helpless, then that means you are on the right path. You feel the tension. Of course, the next step would be acting accordingly, showing this tension, not fighting, but at least making them realize that there is something different in you. Like if people are looking at you and see nothing but just another person like us, a nice part of our colorful picture, then you should question yourself. People should look at you and say that there's something different. From their perspective, there's something wrong with this lady. And I'm not talking about just your scarf and anything. The way you act, the way you speak, the way you treat others. They should see the difference. And then come and ask you, what is different with you? Like, what is wrong with you, girl? Then you are on the right path.
Final thoughts, comments, objections, epiphanies. All right, then inshallah, let's end here. Was that a hand? Okay. It was just a movement. All right, inshallah, let's end here for tonight, and then we can continue from the 7th droplet next time. Thank you, everyone, for your comments, presence. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين آمين السلام عليكم